Well, welcome. I can get right into it. This is the Know Your Numbers podcast, a Better Books broadcast, and we have a very special guest today in Nicole Gauthier. Gauthier, is that correct?
Gautier.
Gauthier. So not even close.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's totally
So,
normal.
Gauthier. All right, I like that. Well, welcome, Nicole. Again, I appreciate you being here, and I'm excited to share a little bit more about you and your history with real estate. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity to come on to your podcast and get a chance to like speak and know you better as well. So thank you for the invitation.
Of course, yes. And to get right into it, Nicole is the founder of Wicked Holdings, LLC. It's a real estate investment company. Where are you located, Nicole? I mean, you could tell much more about that than I can. So let's just hear it.
Yeah. So I'm based actually out of Houston, Texas.
Okay.
So personally, like my family and I, we live in a suburb of Katy, actually, which is just outside of Houston. But everything that I focus on, like investment wise, is all within inner city stuff.
Okay. So inner cities in Texas or all over the US?
Yeah, no, inner city. So far, it's been inner city in Houston.
Okay.
I am like a limited partner on some properties like outside of the state, but for my main gig, it's based out of Houston.
Yes, that's awesome. And
Yeah.
I did see, and I know you're very passionate about your mission and you're very mission driven. I think one of the best things about real estate is that it's a great tool for wealth building, but also if you could share a little bit about how you can integrate your mission into that, what your mission is. I know it is, know what it is, but for the listener that doesn't know much about you, could you share a little bit about your service and what you're looking to do with it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, yeah, I founded my company, Wicked Holdings. It is a real estate investment company, but my mission is to be able to, kind of bring others along for the ride with me.
Mhm.
So it's a little bit twofold in a sense, but with my own personal real estate investments, I'm focused on providing like safe, affordable, more stable housing for those that are in need. One thing that I've noticed is because I've targeted such a special or very specific niche of like single mothers and youth, that I have to kind of work with charities and kind of beat the streets a little bit more to
Mhm.
find these people versus because of course you can't like discriminate or anything on applications for tenants and stuff. But yeah, no, my whole focus is just to be able to help provide more stable housing for those that need a safer environment, and transition out of maybe some of those temporary places that they're staying. So
That's awesome, and that's admirable as well. I love to see it, and I just want to give you some honor and acknowledgement for spreading the good word, doing what you love, but also helping others out. That's awesome to see. So,
yeah, thank you.
um, well, this is a numbers podcast. This is a real estate focused podcast, and one of the things that I envision this turning into is a way for people to learn more about real estate. Somebody who might not think they have the ability to do it, to get the confidence that they need, and to understand that it really isn't that hard to grasp once you quote unquote know the numbers, know how it works. And so, Nicole, if you could just share with us, like, what are some of the tips and tricks that you've learned along the way, maybe some mindset shifts that you've had, or just some confidence boosters that somebody listening who might be having some trouble taking that first step into real estate, something that you can offer them.
Yeah. So obviously, real estate in itself is like a total numbers game. And it's very, very important to make sure that you're buying right,
Yeah.
not forcing deals that don't work numbers wise into something to work just because like you really, really want it badly. There's so many deals that are out there, and you just have to have that patience to find the one that really works for you. Having reserves is also quite important as well. But what I try to stick to for my formula is most investors kind of they buy at a 70% of ARV minus repairs.
Mhm.
And but for me, I don't. I
Mhm.
so I purchase at 70% of ARV minus repairs, but For rentals, they'll go up and they'll purchase closer to like 75 or 88%. They'll kind of stretch those numbers a little bit just because they are holding on to it, right? So in the buy and hold strategy, you've got appreciation and you kind of factor that into your numbers. But for me, I'm more of like a conservative thinker. I think it's my like accounting background that I
Yeah.
just, numbers are just very important and very strict on my side.
Mhm.
So I stick to that standard formula no matter what opportunity that I'm keeping it for, or I guess exit strategy in a sense. Um, I think too that you also have to account for that time of for example, like the BRRRR strategy. So that's
Mhm.
like the property that I'm working on right now. You have to account for the shift in the market and the comps that you ran months ago when you first acquired the property might not be those same ones
Mhm.
towards the final point when you have to refinance. So you just have to be very careful and just don't force a deal to work just because you really want it bad.
Right. Yeah, that's good. And then so going off of that a little bit, how do you manage the uncertainty that comes with it? The not jumping too quick into it, but also knowing the importance of taking that action and not analysis paralysis that we hear about, or not getting timid in the process and actually going for it when the time is right and when the numbers add up.
Right. Yeah. So I will say that analysis paralysis is definitely real. I went through it myself, and it took me some time to just figure out and see like, okay, I can't stay stuck in trying to like run the numbers constantly. And if it's not perfect, then it's not right for me. You have to kind of think a little bit more strategically.
Mhm.
And sometimes too, you just have to jump,
Right.
and just kind of and just go for it and trust in yourself and know that like that you can pull out of it. And if that means that you have to put in a little bit of sweat equity into the property you purchase because now you've got to like replace your roof instead of just like a simple repair. Okay, how are you going to make up for that cost? Are you willing to put in that work in order to make sure that it works?
Wow, that's awesome. Yes, that's great. And then so again, also just going off of your experience a little bit, is I'm sure you've seen the real estate industry transform quite a bit in the time that you've been. I mean, everybody's talking about the hot market that we're in. So what are some of the changes that you've experienced? What are some of how has that changed your process, if at all, or is it kind of the same thing, just knowing your numbers and knowing when the time is right?
Yeah, so the market has been hot and it's been pretty intense here in Houston.
Yeah.
It we'll say that the weather matches the market right now out here, and it's one of those where it's been tougher to find flips. It's
Hmm.
been tougher to find people that are willing to let go of their, not necessarily let go of their property, but they're willing to work more with you on your offer price to them. Uh, there's, I mean, the fact that we haven't had like auctions for like the foreclosures and stuff that have been happening for several months during COVID, you'd think that these people were, that are distressed sellers would be okay with releasing their property just so that they can basically go on with their life
Yeah.
and get some cash and be able to basically you can help them out of that situation. But they're not. They've been like sticking strong. They are, oh well, the auction's not happening, so I'm just going to stay put regardless. So we've been seeing, not, it's tough, and there's people that are certainly taking advantage of the time.
Hmm.
But I know that it's only a matter of time, and I'm just kind of sticking patient with it.
Wow, that's awesome, and that's commendable too, because I know, I mean, from experience, it's easy to get shiny object syndrome and try to jump from place to place. So again, honor to you for being able to hold strong. But for somebody who might not be in your position where they have a set niche like you do, are there other options available to somebody who might know what a flip is and see that there's not much opportunity out there? What are some other options for them to get their feet wet, or to just go all in on real estate right now in a crazy market?
So yeah, with the flips and stuff being hard, honestly, if I had to do it all over again and we didn't have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old at home like with us,
Yeah.
I would just suggest like house hacking. So
Wow.
I would tell my husband, I'm like, let's go find a duplex, or let's go find even like this, this house that we saw in an area called the Heights that we've been
Mhm.
looking at, inner city, but it's just an area that we really like. They had a setup where they had kind of like a separate bedroom, bathroom kind of suite downstairs,
Mhm.
and I would rent that out. I
Yep.
mean, I would house hack in some regard and save up all of that money that I'm getting as like the cash flow, and eventually save it up for like another property. And then once you've moved out and you keep that property there and it's paying for itself, then you can go on and kind of do it again.
Yep.
So that's something that I would recommend.
That's great. And yeah, that's something, I mean, I've thought about that. I'm in an apartment right now. I rent, but the next move, whenever that should be, especially in Boston, it's kind of
Oh,
an expensive city. So
yeah,
house
yeah.
hacking is on my mind.
Well, and we've got I went to energy tech night here in Houston,
Yeah.
and it was just basically all like oil and gas professionals. And I met a couple of guys that were there that were like, early 20s and straight out of college.
Hmm.
And they were house hacking a townhome in the Heights. So you're getting some pretty good appreciation
Yeah.
on the property, but they were house hacking like a 3-bedroom, and it was him and his buddy, and then they just like would rent out the third room on Airbnb.
Mm.
So that's another really cool strategy. I can't do
Right.
that now. My kids would
Right.
run them away, but but
Oh,
if
no.
I did have the opportunity, I'd do it again. I'd do
Wow.
it that way.
That's good. Well, that's good to hear, and hopefully that rings true to some people out there. I
Yeah.
tend to have a big New England following. I mean, that's where most of my friends and family are. So
Yeah,
around these
that's it.
parts, it can be tough to get that cheap real estate. So that's good to know, and um, always worth repeating. So
Yeah.
um, one thing I do want to talk about a little bit is the LLC that you have, the business that you have created, and what that process was like for you, and any tips that you might have for somebody, because a lot of what I'm hearing from certain people is that they're ready to invest, that they want to find the deal, they might have even found the deal, but they don't know how to set it up in the structure that is most desirable for an investor and something that they can use to grow. I don't know if you have any tips on that end, or what you did during it, and anything that somebody could find of use.
Yeah. So one of the coaching programs that I had originally joined here in Texas, they kind of had it already set up as like a full out business model in a sense.
Hmm.
So the first part after you were done, like your 12-week coaching and the courses and stuff, then they have you go ahead and set up your business. So you go through. So I went, for me, starting out, I'm bootstrapping my business. So I
Yep.
went on like LegalZoom and just created an LLC there.
Okay.
Um, and then from that point, after I got my EIN number and everything, then I had that set up, and I was like, okay, good to go for my first property. I know in speaking to certain like other investors, some of them like create LLCs
Mhm.
for each of the properties that they purchase,
Okay.
just to keep their assets, their personal assets, safe from,
Mhm.
if a tenant slips and falls and they try to sue you, like they can't go after like everything that you own.
Right.
But I've also seen it too, where you can have two LLCs, one that you do everything active in. So your wholesaling, your rental properties, that sort of stuff goes your flips, that sort of stuff goes in that LLC. And then for the passive things, like if you decide to become a limited partner on a multifamily unit or commercial or whatever, then you can purchase, or not purchase, but you can invest through that LLC that's specifically meant for that. Um, I could go on and on. I've got a few other little things, but
Yeah.
I don't want to like
No, no, no. Please
completely.
do. If you do,
Oh,
if you don't mind, I'd love to hear it. And that's kind of where the value is right now. So I'd love to hear more.
yeah. Okay. So, and this has just been, just from me learning and like talking
Yep.
to other business advisors and stuff. But one of the other things that I was told is that there's two states. One of them is Delaware and the other one is Wyoming. And those are the states where you can create LLCs or business entities in a sense. And you have you have privacy. So in Texas, if you want to look up and see like who owns an LLC, you can go into, I believe it's like the Texas Comptroller's system. You can go in and look up like who owns that.
Right.
But in Wyoming and Delaware, you can set up business entities there, and you don't know who owns it. It's privacy protected.
Okay.
So what people will do in some situations, I'm on this track, haven't completed
Yep.
that yet.
Right.
But what you can do is create an LLC out of either one of those states and have it own your own business entity wherever it is that you
Okay.
live.
Yep.
So for example, I would create one based out of Wyoming, and then I would have it own my Texas LLC. And
Huh.
then that way, if anyone ever tries to figure out, oh, well, who owns this? Who owns Wicked Holdings?
Mhm.
Oh, well, then they're going to go down another rabbit hole of, oh, it's a Wyoming entity that owns this one. And it just creates a little bit of like, it's very strategic,
Yep.
but it creates a little bit of like a puzzle.
Mhm.
And you're less likely to uh, I guess, have situations or issues where you're like easily able to be sued in a
Right.
sense.
Okay.
I don't
All right.
plan on going that route,
Yeah. No, no, no. But
but it's good to protect yourself because your
yeah.
real estate is your business. It's not a
Yep.
hobby. Like you have to
Mhm.
protect it with all that you can. So
Right. Wow, that's awesome. And I will say, from experience, cold calling, there's probably less likelihood that you get the annoying cold caller coming to you if you have an estate or trust set up like that, or an LLC.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, that is very true. Like I own a lot in Third Ward, which is also inner city. And I was actually looking to build a multifamily unit on there.
mhm.
But I needed parking and the lot next to me was available. And I was like, oh, okay, well, if I purchase this one, then I've got like a 10,000 square foot lot. This is perfect. But then when I went to look it up and I went to look it up. I saw that it was another LLC that owned
Yeah.
it. And I sent the postcard out anyway, but I knew I was like, well, they probably bought it for the same reason I did because
Yeah.
it's right next to two universities. So it's a
Mhm.
hot spot for student housing.
Mm. Wow,
So yeah, you're right
that's
about
cool.
that with the cold calling though.
Right. Now you mentioned university housing. Is there are there certain qualities that you look for, or like um neighborhood qualities or town qualities that you look for, and there's some things that turn you away from an area, or some things that you're like, this is where I want to go?
So I think with this one specifically, it's the proximity to the universities. So
Okay.
one of them is an HBU, and it is like you could pick up a rock and throw it and hit the university. So that was one of the reasons that kind of like piqued my interest is like, oh, okay, like I could potentially use it for this. But also when you go kind of like around the corner from this lot, you'll see that there's student housing that's already there, but it's super old, it's super run down.
Mhm.
And when I looked into like what these students were paying for and rent for these, for these dorm rooms,
Right.
essentially, there was like one room with like two bunk beds in it, and each student is paying like $800. I'm
Wow.
like, $800 like for this, like,
Yeah.
and you don't have no privacy. You've got three other people that are with you. Like, no. And so that's why this area like piqued my interest, because I was
Mhm.
like, okay, like I could actually make really nice student housing places for whether it's staff or it's the students that are there, but they're able to live in like an updated unit that's not falling over, and you don't have a million other people with you in
Mhm.
that room too. So that's kind of where that strategic thinking comes in, is
Yeah.
like, I don't think that single family is going to do so great here, but
Right.
student housing could.
Hmm. So are you currently doing that? Or is that just something that you're looking into?
So right now I'm just kind of doing some research on it. I'm trying to, I have to kind of figure out how I'm going to
Yeah.
fund this project. Right now, I'm working on a rental rehab, and that one's been a very
Right. Yeah.
interesting experience. And that's like basically keeping up. That's taking a lot of my time. and resources.
Yeah.
So once I've got that kind of full circle and refinanced, and I've basically done the full burr cycle on it, then I'll go ahead and I'll start on this other one as potentially my next project.
Yeah.
So I'm doing a few different things, but looking into, because it is a very predominantly minority community,
Mm.
I found a minority bank that's based out of Houston, and it's the only Black-owned bank here.
Oh,
And so I've kind of been thinking maybe I can partner with them on a 203 construction loan and see how I can like implement that and use the lot as like my down payment. So
wow. That's awesome.
just getting kind of all the paperwork and everything together and my business plan and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's great. Wow. And Nicole, if you don't mind me asking, like, what draws you so close to that underprivileged neighborhood or underprivileged background? Is there something in your background, or is it just something that you've seen along the way and you're like, people need me?
Yeah, I think honestly, it's just been something that like it's a little bit of a mix. Like for me, my family, we grew up very like upper middle class.
Mhm.
I didn't have a lot of minorities that I grew up with.
Yeah.
And I lived in Canada. And so I was away from my family that was based out of Louisiana at the time.
Okay.
So I kind of, both my parents were like working professionals. And then we would go home to Louisiana, and I had family that like lived in projects, lived in
Mhm.
very like rough neighborhoods. And when we were kids, like we didn't really like, it wasn't anything that like bothered us. We were just
Yeah.
like, oh, like these kids play at a different looking park. Like that's interesting. Or like, oh, they don't have, what we have.
Mhm.
But it really opened my eyes to appreciate the lives that other people live
Yeah.
and like how I can, they're all people. We're all the
Yeah.
same, right?
Yeah.
But if I've got the resources and the tools to be able to like lift you up and provide you with like different housing or different environment, I want to do that.
Mhm.
And I've always been the type where I've wanted to like help other people.
Yeah.
And my mom kind of like laughs sometimes and she'll say like, oh, when you were a kid and, you'd walk by like homeless people and you'd get like so upset that they were like that and you just wanted to be able to help. And I've got, well, I don't have it with me, but I've got like a couple bucks in my like kids purse or whatever that I want to like give to them. But now that I think about it and I look back, I'm like, was that really changing their life? Like, was a
Mhm.
dollar really like doing much?
Yeah.
And so now I just kind of want to live my life and really be able to like bring up those areas that have like suffered so much from lack of resources. The people don't have the tools in their family that to teach them like what a budget is or
Mhm.
basically like financial literacy.
Right.
And so I'm trying to basically do my part to be able to like help people that are like that.
Mhm.
And I just through research and just getting out there and talking to locals and stuff, I found specific communities that I think that I could make an impact in. So
Wow. That's awesome. And I know you are making an impact, so that's great too. And honor again to you. Um,
thank you.
but you mentioned your childhood a little bit, and I'm curious as to how you use your experience and your knowledge and how you translate that to your kids and look to make an impact on their life. And maybe, I don't know, you said 5 and 2, so a
Yeah.
little young, but are you instilling in them obviously the values that you have, but also the financial literacy as much as you can to a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old?
Yeah. Well, so my 2-year-old, not so much. He kind of like, I've brought them out to different properties that I've toured and looked at and stuff. And he just runs around and plays and touches things he shouldn't be touching. And I'm just like, nah, like,
Right.
but at least he's around it and he's seeing, that this is what mommy does. Like she goes and looks at really like shitty properties and like buys them and like tries to, make a difference and fix them up. So when he gets there, I'm going to be very purposeful about like teaching him the value of like hard work.
Mhm.
So if I need to hire one of the contractors that I deal with to teach him how
Yeah.
to like be good with his hands and learn a trade of some sort, um, then yeah, he's gonna be out there and he's gonna be like doing sheetrock and
Right.
whatever else, just kind of like pitching in. So he's got a future ahead of him of helping. It's not something that I'm gonna like force him to do,
Right.
but I want him to really know like the value of like hard work.
Hmm.
And the same goes for my daughter. She's 5, and so there's different things like she's pretty mature for her age. So we talk about like savings when we're out at a store and she like sees something that she wants, but I can see it in her eye that she really doesn't want it. She just wants like a new toy.
Hmm.
I'll tell her, I'll say, maybe we should wait. Or do you think that this would really make you happy if you had this? Or do you think that you should wait a little bit until the thing that you really want comes back in stock? So I'll question her. Um, and we'll play Monopoly, and I'll teach her about the properties that are worth more and
No.
you can get them for free. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Like if this one's like, you got the card where you can choose like green or orange, and green's $5 and orange is 1, which one's more expensive for free and which one can you get more money for free?
Yeah.
So just things like that,
Yeah.
um, but but yeah, and then as it relates to like financial literacy skills and stuff, like I wrote a children's book. I haven't
Oh,
published it or anything yet, but kind of going through the motions of the illustrations and all that stuff.
yeah.
But just trying to like give back to the community, and I think that if I can make books like very relatable and like kids terms, like age appropriate, we'll say,
Yeah.
then maybe the parents can learn something too, and they'll be like,
Right.
oh, okay, like, wow, maybe, maybe this does make sense and it's easier than I thought because it's
Right.
a kid's book.
Yeah.
Um, and but I think honestly, the biggest tool that I want to give to them is to always like live life, not necessarily on like your own terms,
Mhm.
but don't live it for someone else. Like,
Right.
don't think that mommy and daddy are going to be more proud of you because you went to college versus starting your own business. Like,
Wow.
I want you to do, or, my husband and I, like, we want you guys to flourish and do whatever it is that you truly want to do.
Mhm.
Because in the end, like, you'll only be upset if someone's like forced you into a life of that you just didn't want to live in the first place. Right.
Right.
So just instilling a little bit more of that like entrepreneurial
Mhm.
spirit. And that kind of gets me excited too. So
Yeah. That's awesome. That gets me excited. I like that. But,
yeah.
that's cool. What is it? How did you get involved in like the entrepreneurial world? How did that start? Were you working for someone and quickly realized, or was it something that you kind of grew up with?
I think it was just honestly it was a bit of a mindset shift. My background's in oil and gas, accounting,
Yeah.
and I had the company that I worked for back in Canada was amazing, and I had like such a great work life balance, and I was like, wow, like I'll never like give this up. This is
Mhm.
awesome. But I've always felt like there was a little piece of me that was missing. So
Right.
as much as like my schedule was great and the people that I worked with were like pretty cool too, um I was always much more like outgoing than the other accountants in our
Mhm.
group, and I just felt like I was like a little bit trapped in a
Yep.
sense.
Right.
So I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that like entrepreneurship was for me at some
Mhm.
point.
Yep.
And it wasn't until, I had my kids and I became a stay-at-home mom that I realized like, hell no, like I can't go back to corporate America because I can't have like the work-life balance, or the life that, I really wanted to live like with my kids. I
Mm.
wanted to be present. And both of my parents growing up, they were present, but they were also like full-time, W-2 employees.
Right.
So I learned a lot where I was like in kindergarten and grade 1, and I'm getting my brother and us to like the school bus. I think now, and I'm like, I look at my kid who's in kindergarten, I'm like, I never could do that.
Yeah.
Now it's a different day and age, of
Right.
course, but entrepreneurship just really like brought out the best of me. It brought
Mhm.
out like everything that I was passionate about. And it just gave me like the tool to be able to like think differently and just be more well-rounded with myself.
Mhm. Wow,
Yeah. So
that's cool. So when did Wicked Holdings start? When did you officially launch that? Was that, I
that
think
was
you might
this
have mentioned
year.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, this year. So January of 2021 was when I started Wicked Holdings and
Wow.
just started beating the streets and
Yeah,
really just trying to get my name out there and
yeah.
stuff. So
Wow, that's
yeah,
cool. And
yeah.
then so do you have are you I mean, stay-at-home mom is a full-time job in itself. Do you have another uh W-2, or is it just Wicked Holdings, mom, and family time?
Yeah, no, just Wicked Holdings,
Wow.
mom, family time. My husband's in school right now, and so he's always like pretty busy. He's pretty
Yep,
busy with that.
right.